Hello everyone, this is Aegon of Astora, and welcome back to my casual playthrough of Dark Souls. This is episode 24, and before we got started, I guess I might as well give a brief post-mortem about what happened in episode 23. So, I have the S model, the slim Xbox 360. It was the 4GB console, but I purchased a 320GB hard drive for it. The hard drive is inserted on the bottom of the console when it's stood up vertically. So, as a result, it would seem that the heat got trapped in a way, and it's odd because I haven't used my 360 nearly as often as I once did when prior to having purchased a PlayStation 4. I use my PlayStation 4, it gets much more use than the 360 does. But it would seem that as a result of having it stood up vertically, because the hard drive is inserted on the bottom, that a great deal of heat got trapped there, and so when I went to record what was episode 23, or what was supposed to be episode 23, I was, testing my mic and everything, and then all of a sudden I got a disk read error. But the problem was that, what initially raised suspicions for me, or got me concerned, I should say, was the fact that, I wasn't playing off of a disk. So a disk read error made no sense, and my Xbox was frozen, so I waited. I didn't want to restart it without having, without being able to do so safely, but I waited for something like 10 or 15 minutes, and it became obvious that I was going to need to turn off my 360. So I turned it off, turned it back on, and then it took a very long time, and I was hearing clicking noises from the hard drive, so that you wouldn't have heard in the episode 23 that I uploaded, the intermission episode. But there were clicking noises, which suggests to me that, the arm, for lack of a better way of putting it, because I don't know the technical term, the arm of the hard drive was stuck, and that therefore it couldn't read any data off of it. And then after a short time of attempting to load one of my builds, so I was very hopeful that I was actually able to get into the build selection menu. I was able to get to the load game menu. And I wish I had scrolled through my different characters, or my different builds, so that, I could at least show everyone one last look at them, because I only showed 4 of them here. But then when I tried to load up the Aegon build, the build that we were working on in the context of this playthrough, I waited for something like 10 or 15 minutes, and then, boom, error 68, red dot of death. So, whereas the red ring of death was, the ring of light would turn red, this was just a red dot in the middle. So in terms of troubleshooting, I took the hard drive out from the console, and once I did that, it worked just fine. Tried checking the connections. I tried connecting it to, I actually have a backup 360, which I bought for my ex-partner, but she gave it back to me after we broke up. And so I tried inserting the hard drive in there just to make sure that it wasn't, a connection issue with the 360 itself, but unfortunately the same error message came up, error 68, which indicates, a critical hard drive failure. So if I were to convey some lessons from this experience, because this is actually the second time, as I mentioned much earlier in the playthrough, this is actually the second time that this has happened to me, where I've had a hard drive wiped and have had to, recreate all my builds from scratch. My first piece of advice would be is if you have a Model S, a slim Xbox 360, and you have a hard drive, don't stand it up vertically. And I say that now as my Xbox is still stood up vertically, but I'm not using a hard drive, but I'll get into that in a minute. So standing it vertically for now isn't really an issue. My second piece of advice, and probably much more important, is that you should always save, have your saves run from the cloud. So there are a number of problems with this that led me not to do that even after my builds got wiped for the first time. The first issue is that when you save from the cloud, there's no option on the 360 to kind of set the cloud as your default save slot. So I don't know about you, but I get frustrated waiting for Dark Souls to load on the 360. You have to wait through all of the different, Bandai Namco, FromSoft, Havoc Engine, and then it'll give you an option, hard drive, cloud, and whatever other storage you have there. And so, by force of habit, I've always just kind of mashed the A button so that I could start the game as soon as possible. And so that, when you're quitting and reloading, for example, you want to get back in, or at least for me, I've always wanted to get back in as soon as possible. So I tended to, even if I were trying to use the cloud, I would hit the hard drive by accident, which is by default at the top of the list of storage devices that it asks you to choose from. And so then you'd have to go back to the dashboard, reload the game again, and that was something I just didn't want to deal with, and the consequences of that are obvious now. And the other issue is, of course, that you can't play offline. Like, if you lose your connection to Xbox Live, you'll no longer have access to your cloud saves. So you might be asking, well, why don't you just back up your saves on the cloud? While this does work, and I highly recommend that you take as much advantage of this as possible on the PlayStation 4, for whatever reason, it does not work with Dark Souls 1 on the 360. I don't know if this is just the 360 or if this applies to the PlayStation 3 as well. But if you try to copy a Dark Souls save file on the 360 from one storage device to another, it will say flat out, you can't copy this, you can only move it. And so I thought maybe this was just a universal across the board thing, but I went and I tried with Hardcore Uprising to copy a save file from the hard drive to the cloud, and it works just fine. So that restriction would seem to be specific by specific requests of FromSoft and or Namco Bandai. So I don't understand that, but all of those restrictions aside, I would highly, highly recommend to anyone playing Dark Souls on the 360 or Dark Souls 2 on the 360, just use the cloud. As I jokingly wrote in the previous episode, use the cloud, save a life. Or save the lives of all of your builds, because, yeah, that was pretty sad. So I think that about covers it. So Aegon the First, as he's now known, is no longer. But this is Aegon the Second, who we don't have nearly as many things or as much stuff as Aegon the First did. But we are at about the same place in terms of the world and what we still need to do. We're an additional 5 levels on top of where Aegon the First was. We're at level 125. And as you'll see, we have a fair number of souls, thanks in no small part to a huge amount of high-level PvP I've done, and ended up killing a number of very high-level people, who thus netting a enormous amount of souls. And the reason we're walking around with 790,000 souls is simply that when we are going to complete Master Logan's questline, we have to spend a lot of souls on purchasing spells and whatnot. So we're stopping in terms of leveling for now. We might put some more points on Vitality, but I want to make sure first and foremost that we have enough souls to complete Master Logan's questline, which is also why I've not used any of the consumable souls. I'm saving those just in case we need to pop them in order to complete that questline. So yeah, I think that's about it. Which means that we can get started with the things, finally, that I was originally planning on doing in episode 23. And I'm just thinking, I'm not sure whether or not I said this, but if I didn't, It is Thursday the 8th of October today, and I hope that each and every one of you out there is having a fantastic day, whenever it is you find yourself watching this. So with that said, let's say hello to Laurentius.
Oh, hello there. You've been a stranger these days. Why? What's spectacular pyromancy? Tell me about it. I have never seen anything like it. Why, yes, of course. Thank you for sharing. I'm still an able pyromancer. I shall locate her myself. I mean, you're dead, once again. Pyromancy... Goodbye, then. Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go hollow.
So the her he's referencing there is Kaelana of Izalith. So he came down here, hoping to find Kaelana. And it would seem as though he was unsuccessful. Judging, of course, by the fact that he appears very much to be hollow. And recall that Kaelana, when we first met her, was rather surprised that even though we were, I believe she said, you're a lowly human, and yet you can see me. So she was rather surprised by that. Rip Laurentius. So Kaelana was very surprised that we could see her, which would seem to indicate that, yeah, there's something special about anyone who is able to actually see her. It reminds me a great deal of, the insight mechanic in Bloodborne, which is very interesting, that you have to satisfy certain conditions and be able to see certain things or interact with certain objects or people. And for whatever reason, it seems as though Laurentius, he did not meet those requirements. And he, I guess, just couldn't handle the thought of him being so inferior as a pyromancer. That he was in some way, I guess, an outsider among outsiders. Because pyromancy is kind of an outsider's craft. It's looked down upon by, the fancy Vinheim sorcerers. And yeah, so he came down here, couldn't see her anywhere, couldn't find her, and therefore just went hollow.
Ah, there you are. I was expecting you. Let us begin. Long ago, I accepted another pupil like yourself. Over 200 years ago, the pyromancy, but pyromancy. No luck, Well, young pupil, you must have patience, but do not keep me waiting much longer.
I was expecting her to ask us to put his sisters out of their misery, to kill the bed of chaos, but I'm not sure. Maybe you need to purchase all of her pyromancies first? Let's try that.
Pyroman. Now go. Whatever you do, do not crack and go hollow, lest my time spent on you be wasted.
Weird. Well, maybe we have to actually gain access to Lost Izalith first in order to trigger that dialogue. Which is strange, but yeah, that's unfortunate. But oh well. So I should probably mention how it is that I'm playing if my hard drive is in such poor condition. And the answer to that is simply that I am using a USB thumbstick, of which you can go up to, I believe it's 16 gigabytes. And I have Dark Souls on disc, in addition to the digital copy that I was playing off of previously, which means that I am currently having to endure loading screens of the sort that I haven't had to deal with in a very long time, because I don't believe I've ever even played Dark Souls 1 off the disc and not installed on the hard drive, because of course, yeah, I don't really have space to do that anymore. So yeah, there's that, and it's rather unfortunate. So I might purchase another hard drive, but in order to get it repaired, remarkably, I would have to pay something like 3 times the retail price with Microsoft in order to repair it. So I don't know how the heck that is supposed to work, or what sense that even makes. Maybe they attempt to retrieve the data first? I don't know. But yeah, I might try and repair the hard drive myself and see if I am somehow able to do just that. But yeah, there are no visible screws on the hard drive itself. I'm going to have to basically pry it open using brute force, and I'm not entirely confident in my ability to do that, but we shall see. So yeah, there may also be some stutters here and there, and that isn't the capture process. That is just the fact that I'm streaming the game off of the disc, which is pretty amazing that it makes that much of a difference when you are just playing off of the hard drive. So for now, it's still standing upright, but my 360, but I'm not playing off the hard drive, so it doesn't really matter, I guess.
Anytime you see my brilliantly shining signature, do not hesitate to call upon me. You've left me with quite an impression. I would relish a chance to assist you.
Oh, Solaire. Those are just green Titanite shards there. We don't need them. Let's talk about this boss room for a second. I don't know if it's only me who has experienced this, but... and I can imagine if there's anyone out there who has done a playthrough of the game where you've been trying to usher someone who's new to Dark Souls, if you've done a co-op playthrough with someone who's brand new, and you completed this boss fight, please tell me I'm not alone in having an enormous amount of trouble trying to usher people from this boss room to the next area. Because I know, or at least I think I know, yeah, that's the exit right there. But when you're not able to actually see where someone is going, it's so difficult to try and direct someone to the appropriate spot here. Because everything just looks the same. And yeah, others have covered the Lost Izalith issue and how, you know, they ran out of time, basically, by the time they had to complete this area, so it wound up not being nearly as good as that which was originally envisioned by Miyazaki and FromSoft. But so I'm not going to go into that in great detail, but we are going to run through pretty much most of the area en route to fighting the bed of bullshit. So, yeah. Okay, won't let me light the bonfire. That's interesting. Are we being invaded? Maybe. Ah, crud. Thank you, Gilgamesh95, for ruining the cinematic moment that I've had planned for a very long time. Who invades here, honestly? What an idiot.
Why? Why? After all this searching, I still cannot find it. Why? Why? After all this searching, I still cannot find it.
Sorry, buddy. I wish I could help. Well, I suppose I could help, but I will remind each of you that according to Hidetaka Miyazaki, the radio interview we discussed earlier in the playthrough, the ending that we're going to get for Solaire is apparently his happy ending. It's the happiest ending for him. So I know there's an element of Miyazaki's dark humor in there when he said that, and a text translation certainly doesn't convey the type of meaning that it would in, Japanese when it was spoken verbally. But that is what he said. Certainly I think there's an argument to be made for the fact that neither of the endings are happy, nor are any of the endings, quest lines or otherwise, in the Souls games so easily categorized as happy or otherwise, or good or bad. In reality, things are much more fuzzy. The lines separating the good and the bad, and the happy and the unhappy, are irrevocably blurred. And Solaire's quest line is certainly no exception to that, in spite of what I just said. So these lower halves of what once were everlasting dragons either mutated by the Witch of Izalith and in her attempt to recreate the first flame. Again, certain people have phrased it in such a way as though the Witch of Izalith was attempting to relight the first flame, but no, she was attempting to recreate it, which is something very different. And it would seem to have produced a number of the demons that we fought throughout this game, as well as producing and or mutating a large number of everlasting dragons, turning them into these things, which the community has taken to calling dragon butts, I believe, is the common term for it, or for them. So when we spoke with Solaire, you would have heard a song called, or at least snippets from a song called Lost Sun, which is a Dark Souls tribute made by Endless. Endless sent me a private message on YouTube around the time when I started my casual playthrough, asking, or offering rather, his song for use within my playthrough, and or in any of my videos, he said. And what I said to Endless is basically the same I've said to anyone who has asked, you know, for something they've done to be featured in some way, shape, or form in any of my videos. In that I've said, you know, I don't agree just like that to include things, but that if it's something that I think fits really well within the context in which I'm hoping to use it, then absolutely, I will make use of it. And so, yeah, that's why you heard that song, which is a little bit of a departure from the 8 and 16-bit and occasional 32-bit soundtracks that you've been hearing throughout this playthrough. And I guess I'll just read what Endless has written on his Bandcamp page for the Lost Sun song, and on his YouTube video for it as well. Links to both will be in the description. He says, "This track here is a single that is part of a yet-to-come full concept album, which aims at recreating the atmosphere of the grandiose game that is Dark Souls. I'm trying to make the album sound as if you were a pilgrim traveling to the doomed Lordran for the first time. Please note there will be no remix of the official soundtrack, which is gorgeous by the way, only full original songs to provide a better tribute to the game. To get a more complete experience, head towards YouTube to watch the video I made to go along with the song, which includes dialogue from Solaire and gameplay of Solaire traveling through Lordran. It's very cool. I sincerely hope that you will like the song and the yet-to-come experience that I will try to provide. Till then, keep playing and dying in Dark Souls." So yeah, links to both will be in the description. This is, I believe, still the only song that Endless has released from this album, but he has asked for feedback, good and bad, to be provided. I assume on the YouTube channels, or on the YouTube video for the song is probably the best place to provide that feedback. And you know, if lots of people say, yeah, I really like this, then I assume that he's more likely to work to try and get out the full album at an earlier date than was originally planned. So yeah, very cool song and very cool video, so if you're interested, you can check it out, linked in the description below. And thank you, Endless, for creating this beautiful song, and I very much look forward to hearing the rest of the album. So before we go on, could go down there. I think we are just going to deal with the bed of bullshit, just to get it over with. Before we do that, though, you'll see up here that there is a Daughter of Chaos, and this weird friggin' statue that it's the same model, I think, as the other ones, just with a darker texture, and it like, even though it's moving, you can clearly see it moving in the same way that the statues do. You can't actually hit it. But so recall that the description... Okay, just differences in the line breaks. Worn by the witch Kaelana of Izalith, mother of pyromancy and daughter of chaos. She wore this gold-hemmed black cloak before even the Age of Fire, and it offers resistance versus fire, poison, and other perils. So, weird that this one says founder of pyromancy and one of the daughters of chaos, and this one says mother of pyromancy and daughter of chaos. So I wonder if they intended intended initially to replace the first paragraph for all of the ones, but only did it for the skirt. But yeah, so this, even though it says specifically that that's the outfit worn by Kaelana, recall that we picked up that set in the boss room for Ceaseless Discharge, and also that the orange charred ring, it says, an orange ring enchanted by a witch, reduces lava damage. Since his sores were inflamed by lava from birth, his witch sisters gave him this special ring. But fool that he is, he readily dropped it, and from that spot, a terrible centipede demon was born. So this is referring to Ceaseless Discharge. And it, adds a lot of weight to the sadness of that whole boss fight. That there he is, he's non-aggressive, just watching over this corpse that he thinks belongs to Kaelana, and or to one of his sisters more generally, and that they so kindly created this ring for him, which would keep his sores from inflaming while stepping on the lava, and yet he somehow lost it, and out of the ring was the centipede demon was born. So I'm not sure how quite that happened, but it is very like, even though they're not technically human, the witches of Izalith, there's some very sad stories there that I don't think are really ever focused on. And so aside from Kaelana, this here would seem to be the last remaining daughter of Chaos that hasn't been deformed in some way. So this is, I believe, the third time now that Kirk has invaded us. Okay, so let's take this in turn. Izalith Catalyst. Catalyst of the Witch of Izalith of long ago, when her daughters were still flame witches, before they were engulfed by the Chaos Flame. Before the birth of pyromancy, their wands were mediums for sorcery, but knowledge of this flame sorcery has long since vanished. I believe we got this previously. Choice weapon of the infamous Darkwraith Kirk, also known as the Knight of Thorns for the gnarly spikes on his favorite weapon. This frightful sword deals only thrust attacks and causes heavy bleeding. So we'll be talking about Kirk in greater detail very shortly. But just keep him in mind for now. That Chaos Eater over there is guarding, I believe, it's a pyromancy, I think, so we should probably kill it. I hate fighting these things. And if you've ever had to farm for red Titanite chunks, you're undoubtedly familiar with how much of a pain in the rear it is doing that and having to fight those things, which, if they catch you off guard, they will essentially break all of your equipment, so you want to try and deal with them from a distance as often as possible. This is, I believe, Chaos Whip? Chaos Fire Whip. Art of the Flame of Chaos, which engulfed the Witch of Izalith and her daughters. Sweep foes with Chaos Fire Whip. The Fire Whip was wielded by the eldest of the Daughters of Chaos, so presumably Kaelana. And this one she actually taught to others, whereas this one doesn't appear as though she did. Alright, so I'm deathly terrified that we're going to lose all 878,000 of the souls we have on us. So we are going to cheese this boss really the only way I know how, and hope that that does not happen. So, but yeah, I'm genuinely terrified that it is going to happen regardless, so let's try anyway. What a stupid boss fight. So you'll notice that there is a corpse over there that was not there before. We are going to loot that corpse probably in the next episode.
I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that I am undead, I have come to this great land, the birthplace of Lord Gwyn, to seek my very own son. I did not find my own son, not in Anor Londo, nor in Twilight Blighttown. Where else might my son be? Lost Izalith? Or the tomb of the Grave Lord? But I cannot give up. I became undead to pursue this. But when I peer at the sun up above, it occurs to me, what if I am seen as a laughingstock? As a blind fool without reason? Was it all a lie? Have I done this all for nothing? What now? What should I do? My son. My dear, dear son. Finally, I have found it. I have. My very own son. I am the son. I've done it. I have. Yes, I did it. I did. Oh. Oh. It's over. My son, it's setting. It's dark. So dark.
Sorry, Solaire. Sunlight Straightsword. This standard longsword belonging to Solaire of Astora is of high quality, is well forged, and has been kept in good repair. Easy to use and dependable, but unlikely to live up to its grandiose name. So that would seem to apply not only to the sword, but to Solaire himself, if he is indeed the sun's firstborn. Sunlight Talisman, medium for casting miracles of the gods. The talisman of Solaire of Astora, the Knight of Sunlight, is decorated with a holy symbol, illustrated by Solaire himself. This talisman is a projection of Solaire's upstanding, unwavering faith. Helm of Solaire of Astora, Knight of Sunlight, of high quality but lacking any particular powers. Solaire's incredible prowess must have come from rigorous training alone, for his equipment exhibits no special traits. The large holy symbol of the sun, while powerless, was painted by Solaire himself. So he painted the sun that is on his garments, which is pretty cool. So, was Solaire mad? Was he hollow? That's an interesting question, and one that requires us to return to the dark sign, which reads, "The dark sign signifies an accursed undead. Those branded with it are reborn after death, but will one day lose their mind and go hollow." So that last line, that they will one day lose their mind and go hollow. So we know Solaire is undead. He mentioned it to us. He said, when I became undead, or when I turned undead, I can't recall exactly how he put it. At which point he kind of sealed his own fate, that he would one day lose his mind and go hollow. So with that in mind, I believe it's kind of a false question of asking whether or not he was hollow or he had simply gone mad. It seems to me that the answer was both, in that, and it's not necessarily this way, but he lost his mind perhaps due to the sunlight maggot, infesting his brain. Did we not pick it up? Or do we still have to kill? Weird. So he lost his mind in what would seem, at least to me, to potentially indicate that he was about to go hollow anyway. So the seeming mental illness, his mental break, was, in my view, a precursor to him going hollow. And that is, he, was starting to lose hope. He hadn't found his son anywhere. And, oh yeah, there it is. You can see the red eyes from very far away. It's very weird that we don't actually pick it up off of his corpse. Sunlight maggots. A loathsome parasite that inhabits lost Izalith. It is completely immobile, yet still lives. When worn on the head, it emanates blinding light, which is why it is known as a sunlight maggot. So, if indeed the sunlight maggot was kind of controlling his thoughts, why is it that we can wear it and it doesn't affect us in any way, shape, or form other than just giving us light? But that if Solaire wears it, it's somehow controlling his thoughts. The answer, it would seem to me, is simply that the maggot wasn't controlling his thoughts. It was just, the early symptoms of him actually going hollow. Even though, we didn't see the physical symptoms on his face, that would seem to me to be, representation of the first steps in the hollowing process. He was well on his way when we spoke to him in Lost Izalith, when he was so just distraught. Why? Why can't I find it? And, yeah. I'm sorry, I know that I had the +2. I was already +2 in the Chaos Servant Covenant, so I didn't need... I could have come here, I could have killed the Sunlight Maggot, I could have saved him, but I didn't. Again, because Miyazaki says it's the happy ending, but also just that one line. Why? It was just... it gives me goosebumps every time. So emotionally impactful and wonderful. Alright. I had a bunch of comments and stuff I wanted to get to today, but given how long this episode, I'm at about an hour and 10 minutes in my recording already, so I'm going to leave that for today and address all of the things on my list in episode 25. I hope you will forgive me for that. And that should be out in, approximately 2 weeks from the time that this episode is released. So, thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.